with just me talking. So, but as pretty much everyone by now watching this knows, I can pretty much talk myself into a box. So no worries on that. My God, what a shift in the last 2 or 3 weeks in the NBA, everyone. We had some crazy things pop off over the last few weeks. Guys moving all around the league. You know, we saw what happened with KD and with Kyrie and with Anthony Davis and obviously Kawhi coming in a little bit late. And, Kawhi pulls off a pretty damn awesome move, which is to recruit Paul George over to the Clippers with him. And, it wasn't a huge surprise to people who were paying attention. OKC was trying to cut payroll. They've been over the luxury tax for so long, and they haven't seen anything come out of it. So I think everyone was sensing maybe it would be like a Steven Adams. Oh my God, maybe Paul George, but that would be far-fetched. And I don't think anybody could have imagined what actually happened this week, which was actually just a few days ago, which was Russell Westbrook being traded over to the Houston Rockets to team back up with his old teammate James Harden, and Chris Paul being sent back to Oklahoma City with a package of picks. I think it was like 4 or 5 picks. So Oklahoma City is stacking themselves up with picks right now. Pretty impressive, but only impressive if you think that dismantling your team and starting over is a good idea, which as a Bulls fan, I have to say is not a bad idea, because right now, I'm pretty excited about what the Bulls can do this season. I'm not expecting too much, but I know that the last 2 years contributed pretty heavily to why we're in a better position right now. So, Oklahoma City right now, they want to press a reset button. And apparently Brody was the first one to mention this to them. He didn't want to stay, and it's kind of hard to blame him. The way things ended in Portland this year was gut-wrenching. So that's sort of part of the issue with everything with OKC is they haven't had success in the playoffs. They've been pretty darn good in the regular season pretty much every year. But when it comes to the postseason, they don't really have the same pop as they should. And the appeal for free agents was not that big before the whole Paul George thing. But again, that was a trade, and he ended up re-signing with them, which a lot of people thought, oh, that's a vote of confidence for OKC, and we see what happens a year later. Things really didn't work out in OKC, and it's hard to blame anyone involved for being happy with what they got. Do I think it's a great idea for Houston? Probably not, but I'll get into that as well. Guys, do me a favor. Join me. I don't want to just talk for freaking 2 hours today. Give me a call here. Let's talk some sports. Let's talk anything. Fuck it. Call now, 312-869-4117. Again, phone number 312-869-4117. We're talking NBA free agency to start off. We'll get into some UFC 239, and then we'll also talk some baseball and talk about my White Sox who are getting their asses kicked right now by Oakland, who's a damn good team, but it's been tough to watch the last few weeks. Last few days. So back to this Brody situation. I think it was interesting that, listen, on paper, this looks really awesome. I think Houston fans should be excited. I think there's a lot of possibilities. I think there's a lot of really cool things that could happen out of this. Quite frankly, I don't see this working. I actually had this, same conversation. I know this is sort of a different situation, but shout out to my man, Dirty Dan Sanchez, one of my good friends. And the conversation that we had back when the Lakers found themselves in the market for Dwight Howard and Steve Nash, and that team looked pretty damn good on paper. And what ended up happening is I think I saw what, where Kobe was at in his career, and I saw sort of, where Steve Nash was at to a certain extent as well. And I just wasn't impressed with Dwight Howard at all either way. So I never thought that was a good, that was a good move for the Lakers. And I called it as soon as it happened. And my guy, Dirty Dan Sanchez, said, this is a great team and they're a favorite to win. And, I have a now famous line with some of my friends, which is there's only one ball on the court. And I like to stress that to people because it sort of, it's a little bit of a simplifying, factor for people who don't really know much about the X's and O's. Sometimes you have to explain to them that there's only one ball on the court. And that's what I'm worried about with Russell and Harden right now. They're both one of the, two of the best dynamic scorers in the league. Obviously, Harden's more of a shooter. Brody relies a lot more on his athleticism. That's part of the reason why I'm a little bit nervous about this for the Rockets. You get the sense that Houston is trying to basically maximize their window, maximize Harden's window, and obviously, they made out pretty damn good with this trade. I mean, Chris Paul is a pretty good player, but they basically had Chris Paul on the same contract that they would have Westbrook on right now. Westbrook, I believe, has a pretty damn big player option, but that's, I said this last week and I was a little bit worried about that. I said, oh my God, he's got a player option that's worth like 40 something million. And, that's in 3 years. And after crunching the numbers, I have to admit I was wrong, because, the salary cap's going to be going up. There's going to be a lot of money in the NBA over the next 3 or 4 years, and I can't imagine that would be too much of an issue for Houston if they did have to pick that up. So, again, good trade, but I just don't necessarily think it was going to be the deciding factor for them. And all in all, right now, Houston is they're a different team with Brody now than they would be with CP3, which is, pretty interesting because CP3 you thought would have been a really good fit when he joined them, and you've seen them fall short a couple of times. They were up on that Golden State team, once or twice, and they did have the upper hand in a couple of different series, but never able to really get themselves over the hump. And never able to kind of, bring to fruition the type of things that they were hoping for that team. But man, what a sort of whirlwind of an off season for the NBA. A lot of shit is going to change over the next year, guys. Kawhi, we can thank Kawhi for not ruining the league again, because if he would have went to the Lakers, we'd be talking a whole different story right now. But he goes to the Clippers. He brings Paul George with him. And not only that, I think what ended up happening with Kawhi was he really strengthened his own market value. He took a 3-year deal, and now he's in position in another 3 years. There's a big crop of free agents that, teams should be coveting and hoping for, when the time comes, but obviously it's a little bit too early to make that make that leap. But the NBA right now has a serious parity problem over the last couple of weeks. Parity problem. Sorry to pop my P's there, Steve. They've got a parity problem, guys. It's a issue with just the quality of the league. 1 through 30 is not really great. We've got a couple teams that, we've got about 5 to 10 teams in the league right now that are nowhere near where they need to be and where they should be and where they should expect to be. So that's another huge factor in this, is that you're going to have a lot of teams right now that aren't necessarily going to be competitive. So I guess, in terms of parity, that isn't the best. But if you look at the list now, 1 through 20, it's a lot better. And there's so much more quality. It's not as top heavy. You're not dealing with a lot of the same problems that you had with the Warriors. And, to a certain extent, what ended up happening with the Warriors was certainly a, pretty, I guess, unique circumstance. I don't think you'll see that happen anymore. Part of that has to do with how crucified Kevin Durant was over the whole process. So, that's they're really big right now on sort of, making the league a little bit more, I guess, thorough, and, that would really help. So, I'm excited for the year right now. It's NBA 2K20 is about to be lit. It's about to be really fun to be a 2K player. But other than that, right now, I said it at the beginning of the show, I really want to put a tight little bow on NBA free agency because I'm over it at this point. I just feel like, okay, everything's done. And let's get on to football. I'm in football mode right now, so I really can't help but think about that. So when it comes to the end of free agency, obviously a lot of teams right now have a good amount of chips, in the middle of the table, which is really helping. And now teams are a little bit more invested in. This is something that I read an article on, which a lot of NFL players are a little bit upset about everything coming out of the NFL and just kind of seeing the type of contracts people are getting and type of freedom that some of the NBA players have in regards to their contract status, their, status with a team. And you can't help but sympathize with them because NBA players got paid this year. Marcus Morris got paid is getting paid $15 million next year to join the Knicks. I know my man Nick is not here to talk about his Knicks and defend them, but I saw something the other day that said, they cleared, they traded Porzingis to basically buy Marcus Morris, Julius Randle, Bobby Portis, and Taj Gibson. For a growing team, that sounds pretty damn good. You're gonna have a developing defensive team. It's gonna make things a little bit easier, but all in all, it's got to be a little bit disappointing to not pull out a little bit better of a haul after trading your franchise player. But I talked about this last week. I don't necessarily think the Knicks are like in a terrible position like people want to think. I don't think the Knicks are, cursed or whatever it may be. I do agree with people about Dolan, and I think that. The problem with Dolan right now is that there's a sense of like almost like a foot in and a foot out. And, Nick talks about this all the time, go focus on your band, go focus on this and some of your other business ventures, because I think he's a little bit too, invested in trying to be part of the basketball operations. And that's a problem. You don't want an owner who doesn't know his limit, or I guess his jurisdiction is probably a better way to phrase it, because the last thing I want if I'm an NBA exec is the owner walking in and telling me that he doesn't want me going after a certain player, doesn't want me spending X amount on that player even if I want the player. So I think they have more of an ownership problem, but personnel wise the team isn't that bad. The team has they've got some really young pieces that are eventually going to sort of transition into the next stage of their career. And, I'm a Bobby Portis fan. He's a former Bull, and I thought he really never got a fair shake at it. It's part of the reason why I'm not going too hard on the Knicks is because I think they do have a certain growth level that they do need to get to first. But I also think that there is I think that there's a certain portion of their fan base, and even to certainly people, who are in the media like to pick on the Knicks. They're an easy target, and that's really the issue with that, is that they're just an easy target, and they made it easy for people to hate on them this year. But overall, again, the team is in a transitionary phase. They got RJ Barrett, who didn't have the greatest summer league debut or even summer league period, but I was pretty impressed with some of the moves that they made to not really be nervous about, what's going to happen, yada, yada, yada. If we do this, they went out and got their players, and they didn't waste all of their money. That's the number one thing. They did get Julius Randle on a nice lengthy deal, which is dope. I like him as a player, but Gibson, Portis, Marcus Morris, and I know they got another guy in there as well that I'm probably missing. All with team options, so that's going to really help for sure. Hey Steve, can you zoom in on the chat a little bit, man? I can't really see it from here. If not, I'm going to pull it up on my phone right quick. But I cannot see what my cousin...
Yeah, we got a question from Jamil. It's okay. At this moment with the current NBA team rosters, who is your favorite to come out of the East and the West?
Oh, awesome! Thanks, Steve. So Jamil, thank you for listening, and thank you for the question, my man. I love you, brother. That's my cousin Jamil, everyone. And congrats on your baby, Jamil. She's beautiful. But yeah, to answer your question, I really love the Clippers, and I'll tell you why. I love the Clippers because I think defense has been so important to winning teams over the last couple of years. We saw it with the Warriors. They did a lot of their damage, shooting threes and being an offensive powerhouse, but at the same time, they really made their money on defense. So I like the Clippers a lot. The reason why I like the Clippers specifically is because 1 through 5, or I guess 1 through 4, of Pat Beverly, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Trez Harrell, and even like Zubats. I like Zubats. I don't think he's like a defensive anchor, but I think he's a really, really good young player who they re-signed. So I like the Clippers a lot out of the West, and I think it's going to be fun to watch. It obviously has we're going to have to see how they gel. We're going to see how Doc sort of approaches this. Doc Rivers. There's a little bit of a sense that maybe Doc is going to try and reinvent the team. I don't even think he has to do that. I think he's in a position right now where he can probably, he can probably sort of bring this team into training camp and build the same type of team he built last year, because they weren't really an offensive juggernaut last year or anything like that. They relied on their defense, and they relied on their bench and, Lou Williams, and I like their pieces around them too. I think like Landry Shamit's a nice young player. I know that they had to trade Gilgeous-Alexander for, as a part of the deal for Paul George, but I really like their team defensively, and I think they've got enough shooting with Lou Will coming off the bench. Excuse me. I think they take the West. The East is a little bit more complicated. The East, man, listen. The East is not going to look good next year. There might be a team in the West that wins 55 games and misses the playoffs. And there might be a team in the East who wins 55 games and is a top 2 seed. That shows you that really right now we're talking about a pretty tough road for the East. Boston retooled. They did what they could. Obviously, Brooklyn has Kyrie, but how they're going to do without Durant, I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a guarantee that everything works out. But here's the big thing about the East is it's wide open, and there's a lot of young teams in the East who are like vying for a position in the playoffs. And I think, Orlando, the Bulls. Obviously we know that the Knicks right now are probably underrated, and probably nobody's thinking that they're going to make the playoffs. I wouldn't bet money on it, but they've got a young team that's going to be competitive and pretty good defensively. I think overall right now, the East, you have to go with continuity, and I'm going to go with Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee's going to figure it out. I just don't necessarily know right now about their roster. I'm not a huge fan of the types of moves that they've made after what happened last year. I think they had a really good shot to talk about things after the playoffs and say, hey, you know what, that didn't work. Maybe we should go back to the drawing board and think a little bit more about what type of player we want in here, because Mirotic looked really good on paper. That didn't work out. I know they re-signed Brook Lopez, but some of the guys that they brought in to surround him didn't work out. They no longer have Malcolm Brogdon. They did re-sign Middleton. So we'll have to see how this team sort of adjusts to the East. But if you're asking me right now in the early stages here, I've got the Clippers out of the West. I've got the Bucks out of the East. And my heart wants to say the Bulls, because I don't know. I want to speak positivity into the universe, bro. I want to be a conduit of positivity. But I'm not there. I'm not quite there yet. But I really do think the Bulls right now can surprise some people. They didn't have the sexiest offseason. Their offseason was kind of more so flew under the radar. And, Chicago, man, we're blessed with some really good people, but we're also cursed with some really dumb sports fans. I don't necessarily want to call anybody dumb, because I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but when it comes to being a sports fan, we've got a lot of dumb sports fans in Chicago, man. And some of them were like, you spent $40 million on Thaddeus Young and and we could have went and got another free agent. No, we couldn't have. You guys have to understand that the Bulls were in a position right now where they really didn't have a choice this year. They had to go out and find a team that was going to mesh and gel this year. You've got a new, quote unquote, new coach who's sort of on a tryout right now. Like, he had a half season last year. I know he impressed the front office. I know that the players like to play for him, which is a good thing when you have young players. But the Bulls right now, they needed a couple of different things this offseason, and they went out and addressed all of those things. And that was my number one thing, is when you're talking about Garpax, who, every Bulls fan probably has a, sour taste in their mouth when they have to say those words. They don't necessarily always have the best mindset going into these types of things, and it makes it a little bit difficult. And this year, I think they understood where the window was, and I was proud of the fact that we got a guy like Thaddeus Young, who to me is kind of like a gel player for this team. You've got Lowry, who's going to be sort of a pick and pop type of forward. I'm not sure if Lowry's ever going to be that great defensively. I think he's a good defensive player. I think he can be a good defensive player too, but I don't necessarily think he's ever going to be great. And I think Thaddeus Young is a really solid four who can give you good defense. He's versatile. He's really versatile. He can play with the ball. He can play away from the ball. He's got decent athleticism for a guy who's his age. So to me, man, I have no choice but to be optimistic about the Bulls. You draft Kobe White. You sign and trade for a guy like Satoransky, who I thought, for some reason, that dude Satoransky used to mash the Bulls when he played us. He loved playing the Bulls because he played us really well. So I like Satoransky. I'm not sure if he's. I think a lot of people have him pegged as a starter right now. I'm not sure if Kobe White's ready to start, but I would almost rather start Chris Dunn if you're not going to trade the dude, because to me, Chris Dunn would bring the added defense to the starting lineup. That would help mitigate some things for Zach LaVine, help mitigate some things for Otto Porter. So, to me, it would make sense if they started Dunn ahead of him. But nevertheless, I'm optimistic about the Bulls. But part of sports is just kind of convincing yourself into what you think and what you want to happen. And I'm convincing myself that this year is the year that the Bulls win 48 games and they can, stay competitive and not really have to worry about injuries, which we had to worry about that a lot last year. So that sucked. But again, we're, new year here, and we'll see what happens. So guys, as you can see, I've got some swag next to me. Nux, you guys know Nux. If you've been listening the last few weeks, they're one of our favorite sponsors, and Nux 3-in-1 refresher spray. I just tried this Zeus scent men's 3-in-1. I know I seem like I'm like, on an infomercial right now, but I really did try this, and this thing smells good. It works. I'm sweating up a storm in here, but you really can't tell, which is really good. And we've got some Nux swag here, guys. So thanks to Nux for being a sponsor and helping us out, keep this show free for the fans and sort of allow us to have our outlet. So thank you to everyone at Nux.
What do you think it smells like?
You know what, Steve? Man, we talked about this. First of all, it smells good. Second of all, I want to say, I think you said it and I agreed with you, almost like a citrusy smell, but it's more advanced than that. I think I
can't put my finger on it. It kind of smells like leather too at the same time.
I was going to say it has like almost like a mahogany, like it's almost like a fancy, it's got like almost a fancy like cologne-y smell to it.
It smells good though.
Yeah,
it doesn't
smells
smell like
really
deodorant
good.
at all. It's
not
like
deodorant smelling at all, and not overbearing at the same time too. It's not like we talked about, other sprays are kind of like Axe spray. It's like, almost like just like, caking yourself in this liquid that...
With Axe, though, it's Axe. You can tell that
right,
it's Axe.
Exactly.
It's got that really cheap cologne smell to it.
Yeah.
This stuff does not have that. It almost
not at all
smells like cologne.
It smells like cologne. You're going to smell good in this, man. Listen, Steve, I'm so sorry. I know that this is here for, like some test purposes or promote. I might have to steal this one from you, Steve. I'm sorry, man.
That one's mine. You got to get your own.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to have to talk to Nick over at Nux because, no, this is awesome. Thank you guys again so much. And again, thank you for the swag. Yeah. So, UFC 239 happened last week. And, man, what an event. To me, the event went really well, I think, for the UFC. I personally thought the card was a little bit... First of all, I talked about this last week. I think there should be more fights on the card. Looking at Bellator, their Instagram, I think they had a live event yesterday. I missed it, unfortunately. But they've got like 40 fights on their card. And that's... their product is not that bad. I think a lot of people like to make fun of ONE FC, PFL, Bellator to being like these secondary, almost inferior products to the UFC. I don't see that. I really don't. I think Bellator is a damn good organization. They're able to pull in some really good fighters, and not all of their cards are rock star cards, but at least they put on a lot of fights. And you know that you're going to see a lot of fights that night. And I was a little bit disappointed with the UFC because it felt like after 3 fights, you were basically into the top 3 main events or whatever you want to call it. There's 2 championship fights, and there was also a really big draw, which I need to talk about. I want to pat myself on the back a little bit, guys. If you watch last week's show... I talked about Jorge Masvidal, who's one of my favorite fighters, if not my favorite fighter. And I talked about his fight with Ben Askren. And Ben Askren, man, he's an interesting dude. I know he's a grappling wizard. I said this last week. I want to say he's an Olympic gold medalist. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know he did win a lot of wrestling tournaments in college and in high school, and he's a really good fighter, or I guess really good wrestler, I should say. And he has a 19-0 MMA record. So I think a lot of people were really looking at this guy like he's the next big thing. And I said it in the show last week, and I will say it again. I really do think that Jorge Masvidal was the better fighter even before. And I knew that he was going to be smashing this dude's face somehow. I thought maybe because I had watched Masvidal's podcast with Joe Rogan, and it was hard to imagine any other scenario other than Masvidal beating him up for like 14 minutes and 50 seconds. And that didn't happen because we ended up seeing the fastest knockout in UFC history. It was 5 seconds on the official like scorecard. Askren was out in like 2 seconds. Masvidal, man, people, this new mentality in the UFC is like, we've got to have people who can promote and who can talk and talk that big game and, yada, yada, yada. And McGregor sells fights and this, and that. And I think this new thought process is guys like Ben Askren are the next level or the next sort of generation of fighters who are going to be really clever and boom roasted. And, oh my God, he's got clever quips on Twitter. And Masvidal's a real ass dude. He's from Miami. I talked about this before. This dude was fighting he was fighting bare knuckle boxing when he was 16 in Miami with Kimbo Slice. This dude is a real fucking dude. And I'm talking about same thing that I would say about Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz. Same thing I would probably say about, even a guy like, to a certain extent, I like Stipe a lot because he has that real dude feel to him, right? He's like, he's a firefighter. He's a guy that if you give Stipe shit in person, he's probably going to knock you the fuck out. So when Askren was going so hard at Masvidal, months before the fight, calling him out, calling out his intelligence, calling out his culture, calling out his, listen, Askren crossed the line because he should be getting better advice from his team and his team should let him know that Masvidal doesn't fuck around, and you don't want to give this dude a reason to beat the like he said it in a press conference, and I think it might have been in the lead up to the Cowboy Cerrone fight. It was funny because he said something along the lines of like, because Cowboy's not a guy who talks. He is there to do, he'll do the intense stare down with you, but most of the time he just wants to have a Budweiser with you, and he'll tip his cowboy hat, and he'll hug you at the weigh-ins if everything's good. So he Masvidal said it's almost harder to fight a guy like Cowboy because you end up liking him, and you end up saying there's really no bad blood here, and I don't really have any extra motivation here. I don't need any extra motivation, but I don't have any extra motivation right now. And he talked about when fighters try and get in his head and try and play the mouth game, it tends to really fuck with them and not really with him. So we saw that with Askren. He talked so much before the fight. And then, Masvidal put his hands behind his back and almost baited him into saying, like, yeah, I'm going to take it easy on you. And, Ben kind of came in aggressively. He wasn't even really, running or pacing too fast or anything like that. He just tried to advance. I think he thought that Jorge was going to take it easy to start off, or maybe try and avoid him to start off. And he shot for the takedown within the first 3 seconds of the fight and got a knee planted into his face, and he was out cold immediately. I mean, like I said, the official timing was around 5 seconds. Askren was out within 2 seconds flat. And then Masvidal, for good measure, got a couple of shots off to Askren's face, which, listen, I think there's a lot of this, there was a lot more of this talk in the early days of the UFC. And I'll be honest with you guys, I wasn't ginormously into the UFC in this period that we're talking about. I really recently got into it like closer to 10 years ago. But this idea of like, respect your opponent. If they're out cold, then you never hit them, again. And I love Masvidal's answer to that. He's like, listen, dude, I get paid to punch people in the face and try and hurt them until the referee stops me. And if the referee doesn't stop me, then I have to keep punching that person in the face and trying to hurt them. And I thought that was a great answer because, there's this idea that there's this code in this sport, and you always want to make sure that your fellow fighter is okay. And I think a lot of people were criticizing Masvidal's antics after the fight. He went and did a little wrestling move and counted him out. And said something. I think he told Ariel Helwani, he said something like, "Talk shit now," because again, it's easy to have emotions after a dude is like talking shit for 4 months before your fight, and even previous to that, apparently this beef, which a lot of us didn't really know about this, but apparently this beef goes back like 10 years, and this guy Askren has just been annoying Masvidal for 10 years. So to me, man, listen, I've got to hand it to Askren. He handled it really well. He went on to Ariel Helwani's show the next Monday, and he did an interview, and he seemed coherent. I'm not necessarily a fan of having an interview with a guy like that a day, 24 to 48 hours after he had his lights shut off, but. Props to Askren. He was a lot of people were like going overboard and saying what a class act he is. No, because if you watch the full interview, you can sense a little passive aggression from him. He kept saying something along the lines of like, "I lost to George Masvidal," like as if that's like, oh my God, why would you, why would I? How could I ever lose to that guy? So yeah, it was interesting. Hey Steve, are we gonna get a call soon?
Yeah. It looks like the black portion of the show is going to be calling in shortly. So.
Oh, look who decided to show his voice. Awesome. Well, that's going to be awesome because I do want to talk about some of this stuff with Nick because again. He and I have differing opinions on stuff, but I think me and him are going to be pretty unanimous. So flag me down when he's ready, okay, Steve?
Yeah, he's just he's looking for a quiet place. He's at a birthday party right now, so that's why he couldn't make it, But
it happens, man. Well, here's the big thing with me, guys. Before we transition into that, we'll obviously talk a little bit more about UFC 239. I want to put a bow on this Askren Masvidal stuff because I've been posting a lot on Instagram this week of, memes, videos, things about the fight, which I thought were cool, funny, whatever you want to call them. And listen, it's easy to come off a little cocky and dickheady on Instagram, but I usually do that because I have no sense of like, oh my God, I shouldn't say that, or oh my God. But, I had a lot of people that were like, Askren's a great fighter, and how could you glorify him getting knocked out so brutally? And I think I posted something of Masvidal joking at the press conference, post fight press conference, that he looked at the reporter and said, yeah, and then I had to hit him with that 2-piece because I thought he was going to get up, and he started laughing, which I thought was funny. I got a real good chuckle out of that. Now, a lot of people are like, that's classless, he shouldn't be doing stuff like that. Listen, man, if you have enough gall to talk shit on a dude like that, you should be able to take that. And what I'm really happy about before we transition out of that is Masvidal is getting a lot of play now. This guy's becoming more of a household name. I saw him on ESPN. I saw him on Fox Sports 1. I saw him on, Instagram is blowing up. His Twitter's blowing up. That's awesome. That's a dude who's been in the game for a long time. He's paid his dues, man. You have enough. What's that, buddy? Did I miss something,
It was
Steve?
an accident.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I thought, no, you're good, man. I thought that was you. This is a dude, Masvidal, man, who he's had a little bit of a rocky, he's had a little bit of a rocky career, meaning it's been ups and downs, and he's lost a couple of decisions that a lot of people didn't think he lost, and he's been placed into tough positions by fighters before. He's been knocked down, but his last 3 or 4 fights, this dude is looking like a fucking animal, and he looks like he's ready for the title, and I really hope Kamaru Usman, I know that there's a lot of talk about Usman maybe being hurt. I really hope that Usman is not hurt, because I would really hate for them to do another one of these interim belt type bullshit scenarios where, we still got Colby Covington, let's just do a rule, guys. The UFC has a new belt now, okay? If you received an old belt, don't wear it anymore. Especially if it's an interim belt. Like, Mighty Mouse, Amanda Nunes, fine. But Colby Covington, put the fucking belt down. You're not a champion. You were an interim champion. And you're not a champion right now. You're not the champion. Kamaru Usman is the champion. So stop that shit, all right? Let's... this whole people like to give shit to Colby about his gimmick. I don't really care. I think he's more of a WWE, WWF type UFC fighter. He's gonna play this character of the MAGA guy, and quite frankly, I've heard a lot of great things about him. I'm not going to necessarily sit here and say he's a bad guy, because a lot of people he wants you to jump to that conclusion about him. He's trolling you on purpose so that you think he's an asshole. And he is a little bit of an asshole, but from what I understand, he's close friends with Masvidal. He's really, really close with the guys at American Top Team, and a lot of people like him. A lot of people have great things to say about him. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Quit this mentality of everybody's got to be friends after and yada, yada, yada. I'm so happy to see guys like Israel Adesanya and John Jones going at each other. Fuck all that friendly bullshit. Fight each other. Talk shit. I want to see that fight. I think it's going to be a dope-ass fight if they can pull it off. I think we're probably still a couple years from that. But, this whole mentality that you got to be nice and shake hands and love your opponent after. Dude, you're in a fight. You're literally trying to incapacitate your opponent. You're trying to hit your opponent in the head so many times that he can no longer stay awake. So this idea that we've got to be buddy and we shouldn't, we shouldn't be celebrating after somebody's been knocked out so brutally, and we shouldn't be hitting people after they've been knocked out. Keep that same energy. Keep the same energy that you have for Askren talking shit on Twitter 4 months ago to, Masvidal doing his victory lap. And I'm happy he's got a victory lap. The dude deserves it, man. He's been around the block, and he doesn't deserve to have to deal with, the type of sort of tug of war that the UFC has with these types of dudes, man. And I also want to mention, I'm happy he called out Conor McGregor. The dude wants money. He deserves money, and they should give him a money fight. And I think right now, that's not too bad of a deal for Conor. I know Conor right now is apparently obsessed with the Khabib rematch. That's what I've seen, at least. Does he deserve a rematch? No. I don't think anybody can tell you after the last fight that he deserves a rematch. But he's not that far off. I mean, Dustin Poirier, we'll see how that goes next month. But if, Dustin Poirier beats Khabib, then yeah, you can go ahead and run that back. But otherwise, I mean, I still think he should have fought Cowboy. I thought that would have been a good fight for both of them. Nice little, payday for, Cowboy. The UFC right now, man, I know that they're in a transitionary phase. They're trying this whole new gig with ESPN. Again, I'm not a huge fan of them not having a ton of fights on the card like they used to. And I don't even know if there were any fights or fighters that dropped out last week. I think it was just a short card. So, again, top heavy, really good card, really good main event card, but the undercard and the prelims were whatever. So, yeah, Masvidal and Askren. Obviously, Masvidal right now is at the top, looking down, and I think he's probably hoping for a title shot against Usman at the very least. Get the man a fucking money fight. Let him fight McGregor and make a clean check while beating the snot out of McGregor. I'm sure that would be a good fight. I don't think McGregor would embarrass himself. And then the two title fights that event last week were both went sort of the way we saw them. Obviously, the end, how the Nunes home fight ended was a little bit, surprising. I don't think anybody thought that, Amanda Nunes was going to high kick home in the head and beat her and knock her out that way. But I thought it was exciting, and I think that it's time to put some respect on Amanda Nunes' name. Listen, Amanda Nunes has torn apart pretty much every single, girl that's been put in front of her, and right now there's not a lot of fights left for her. I know that people are talking about a Cyborg rematch. We'll see how Cyborg does in her next fight. I know that a lot of people are talking about maybe like a Jermaine Durandamy, who's actually fighting tonight. She's actually the main event tonight. I don't like that fight for Durandamy. I don't even really like Durandamy. I think she's she's had a couple of like weird spots in the UFC. I think it was a home fight. She hit home after the bell 3 rounds in a row and ended up somehow winning that fight by decision, which I didn't see, but it's a little bit hazy. But yeah, Amanda Nunes right now just doesn't have a lot of competition left, and that's kind of a problem for the UFC right now. So I'd like to see that Cyborg rematch. I think Cyborg would be a nice sort of answer, but hopefully Cyborg is a little bit more ready for the power and a little bit more ready to be more mobile than she was last time, because Amanda, she's got power, but she's also surprisingly sound when it comes to her basics and her almost fundamentals, and that's what makes her so damn good. And that's why she can high kick one of the most tenured and respected kickboxers in all of women's kickboxing or MMA. So props to her on that. And yeah, we'll see what happens in the next fight. I would probably guess Cyborg, but we'll see. And then the main event that week, that week, I keep saying that week, that night, last Saturday, John Jones versus Thiago Santos. Thiago Santos, man, is a fucking savage. Let's just get that out the way. Thiago Santos is a warrior of epic proportions. The dude tore every single fucking thing in his knee and his leg, his ACL, PCL, MCL, TCL, TLC, whatever you want to say. He tore it in that fight and still went 5 rounds. That dude is a fucking savage, and props to him. Listen, Jones won that fight. I think a lot of people are like, Jones lost. No, he didn't. He won the fight, but he just didn't look impressive. And it's a little bit troubling that he can't put out a guy who's essentially on no legs. He didn't have, because the one leg that he tore everything in was one thing, but he also hurt the other leg as a result of kicks from John Jones early in the fight. And some of these teep kicks and some of these kind of straight kicks that were really bothering Santos, to the point where, Santos was not mobile towards the end. And it was tough to watch, to see a guy with so much heart and so much tenacity and so much energy still after, enduring, 3, 4, 5 rounds of this punishment, which he did give a little bit back to John. And I think, listen, one judge had this fight scored for Santos. I'm not going to go that far. I thought that was I don't know who the fuck that judge was. I don't know what fight he was watching, but Jones dominated that fight. It just didn't look impressive. I think a lot of people wanted to see him finish that fight. I think a lot of people wanted to see him look a little bit more prepared for the fight. I thought Santos, man, did a tremendous job of staying in it. And yeah, that's a testament to Santos being a fucking savage. It's also a testament to maybe Jones not being as invested into everything that he should be. Now, again, I hate being a fucking armchair quarterback, and I hate being the guy that, talks to everyone, in a certain way and says these certain things about them. I'm not really that guy, but yeah, John looked a little bit uninterested, and he did look like he was kind of waiting for that next fight. Obviously, a lot of people right now are talking about the possible rematch again with him and DC. I guess let's do it. DC's got a fight coming up, and if he wins, I think he's probably got 1 or 2 fights left in him. Part of my reluctancy to have that fight happen is almost my admiration and love for DC, because I think that he would get destroyed. John right now, man, he's an interesting cat. He's got a lot of confidence in himself. He's a guy who, he technically has one loss, but everyone refers to him as an undefeated fighter. Everyone knows that his one loss is bullshit. And this is a dude who stayed at the top of the mountain despite so much fucking controversy. A lot of it self-inflicted, a lot of it not. But this is a dude who's almost like bored at this point, it seems like, man. He doesn't have a lot of incentive or skin in the game anymore. And that's an issue, man. When you sort of lose out on that aspect of things, I can't imagine what it's like to try and keep your head in the game when you're fighting a guy like Thiago Marreta Santos. And you've got to come up with the game plan and also, do all of this preparation while knowing that you're probably the better fighter and probably that you're going to win. And that's what we see with him. And that's why I mentioned him and Stylebender earlier, because first of all, Stylebender is another one of my favorite fighters. But Stylebender, to me, man, he's a dude who has the potential to get to, fighting John. I just don't think he's there yet. And I think it's, a far-fetched idea right now because we don't know what's going to happen. But do I like that they're talking shit to each other and starting off this rivalry a little bit early? Yeah, hell yeah, I love it. So, continue to do that and continue to, hype this future fight up because I'm losing a little bit of interest in John Jones at this point. I think he's kind of yawning away as the GOAT, and I think right now we've got to figure something out if you're the UFC. Guys, as you guys know, we are sponsored by Intrinsic Marketing. Guys, all the services that you need are under one roof. You started a business because you believe in what you do. So let Intrinsic Marketing bring your product or service to the market. That's what they do best, guys. Intrinsic has the services, tools, and expertise to make it all happen all in one place. All of the services include web design, social media, copywriting, targeted ads. Guys, we're talking design, development, and hosting, everything that you need to get your stuff online, comprehensive social media management services scaled to fit your specific needs, copywriting, we're talking blog posts, articles, sales material, press releases, and a lot more, guys. So don't take my word for it here. See for yourself. Go check out IntrinsicChicago.com. Again, INTRINSIC Chicago.com. You guys know how to spell Chicago. Yeah, so listen, guys. We're going to have Nick probably calling in soon. I don't know what the timeline is on that. So if you are waiting to hear from the black portion of Mac and Black, I'm hoping that we can get him in on a call so we can talk a bit. So MLB Baseball right now is, hey, Steve, you said that Nick is ready?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm going to get him on the line right now.
Okay, cool.
I'll let you know when he's on.
All right, perfect. Yeah, because I definitely want to talk that NBA stuff with him, some of the stuff that kind of broke in late. That's kind of the big thing about doing this podcast on a Saturday is for some reason, and we've seen it over the last few weeks, it's almost like the middle point for a lot of what's happening. We've had a lot of stuff that happens either the same day in the middle of the podcast or before the podcast, directly after the podcast, a day after the podcast, day before the podcast. So we've had a lot of that weird timing, but yeah, that's where we're at right now. Yeah. Here we go.
There he is.
Yo.
What's up?
What up, though?
What's good?
Hey, am I loud, bro? Hey, am I loud?
No, you're good. Is he loud on your side, Steve?
I think he's okay.
I'm good. I can hear you fine. What's good, my man?
Not much. I'm just making sure. I'm at, I don't know where I'm at. I'm at John Barleycorn, a.k.a. Mo's Cantina, out here at good old Wrigleyville. And I must say, Cubs won today. It's a lot of white girls out here today. So
it's popping.
So it's kind of crazy.
Hey, Nick, you out there for a birthday party?
Yeah, I'm out there. My friend turned 21 today. So, we went to some place called Hampy Camper. It's like this pizza joint out here. It was pretty fast.
Oh, okay.
And then we're at Moe's Cantina. I'm gonna tell you what, the heat out here right now is very disrespectful right now.
I'm sweating in here, man. I mean, it's nice and cool in here, and I'm sweating in here. I can't imagine what it's like out there right now. 98.
Bro, the train ride coming up here was a mess because I guess they're doing work on some places on the Pink Line.
Yeah.
So I had to take shuttles and stuff, and then my friend was like, "Well, just meet me at the pizza place." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then I had to get off at Logan Square, bro. It was so hot in that train station, bro. I was in there glistening. It was so hot.
I can't even imagine, dude. I'm like sweating thinking about it right now. Nick, you weren't here, but we obviously talked about, I had to talk about that Russell Westbrook trade, and I've been dying to know what your opinion is on that. What do you think about what happened over the last few days with Russell heading over to Houston from Oklahoma City?
You know what? I guess the trade for me, it really didn't make sense, only because what I'm confused is unless the Oklahoma City Thunder think that they can flip Chris Paul, Chris Paul's contract is just as bad as Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, well, apparently, Nick, they've said they have no intention of him ever playing in a Thunder uniform. But I agree with you. Who are you going to call to take that contract down for you? I don't know.
Right, and the thing is that Oklahoma City is kind of in a position where I feel that they're going to have to eat some of that contract.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Think about it. There was a report that the Rockets tried trading Chris Paul to the Knicks, and the Knicks said no, probably because Chris Paul, I think in the last year of his contract, is due, $40 million.
Yeah.
That's almost the same nonsense that Russell Westbrook is due at the end of his contract.
But Paul is going to be almost 7 years older than him.
Exactly. So the thing is, I think the thing is with Oklahoma City, they got the picks between trading Westbrook and trading Paul George. They got a lot of first-round picks. We're talking about the same team that I don't think has had a first-round draft pick.
I know, that's crazy.
Over the last I don't know how many years. So now they're set. But now you got a contract that you almost can't move unless you eat some of it.
Yeah, which, listen, it wouldn't be the end of the world if they had to eat a little bit of it, but it doesn't make the trade look as good as it does right now, because as it is right now, they got a lot of picks. But, Nick, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan that teams can trade picks in 2027. That's fuck to me. You should not be able to, again, a lot of the picks that were given to Oklahoma City were in 2026 or later. That is nuts to be able to.
In the NBA, you can't trade back-to-back years of picks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they almost didn't have a choice but to, if we want to make this deal, then I have to give you 2026 and 2028, which is kind of crazy.
Right.
But I agree with you. If you look at the history of the NBA, wasn't it the Detroit Pistons that traded Wesley Person and a first-round draft pick 5 years later, which could have been Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
But Detroit decided to go with Darko Milicic.
Yeah. Well, I joked to my friend that, he said, man, they got so many damn picks. It's great. I said, yeah, but most of the guys they're going to pick are in the fourth grade right now. So, they have a chance to pick a really good player, but we don't know. We don't even know what the value is going to look like on those picks, then. So, but here's my...
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that because you're almost at a point to where it's all these little Facebook videos that you see sometimes where it's here's a high school phenom who's in the sixth grade and, depending on what the NBA does with the one and done, if they keep it or if they get rid of it, you're right. You have no idea what the value is. You're just banking on there's going to be some superstar.
Yeah.
But you also got to look at who they got the picks from. the Clippers are stacked. Now the Rockets are stacked. So it's not like you're going to get a top 10 pick.
Yeah, no way.
A lot of these are kind of protected. There's a few that are unprotected.
Yeah.
But a lot of these are protected. So you're only going to get bottom-of-the-line picks.
Yeah. And it was the most surprising thing to me, quite honestly, was that that the Thunder didn't find a third team before they pulled the trigger on the trade. Because now what they're going to probably have to do is convince a team like maybe Miami. I mean, that's really, honestly, Nick, I was thinking about it the other day. How many more realistic options are there for CP3? He can't go to the Lakers. He can't buddy up with his buddy LeBron. There's not a lot of teams that have the type of cap space obviously left. And then on top of that, you're going to have to take on some salary. And listen, Miami has some expiring contracts. They've got some big contracts in Olynyk, I think Waiters, James Johnson. So they could give up assets or they could get some assets back, but you're going to be, again, looking at another set of expensive players. So, I'm not necessarily, I'm a little bit torn on who won the trade, actually, Nick.
Yeah, I guess if you think about it, I don't know. I guess for the now factor, maybe it's Houston.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see on what happens in the future when we figure out what these picks turn out to be. Because now the question is can Harden and Westbrook,
Yeah.
I know they played together in OKC, but Harden was not the offensive player now. I mean,
Right.
than he is now, you know?
Especially shooting-wise, it's night and day with that Harden and this Harden. And my worry, and I said at the beginning of the show, Nick, is that I don't think the Rockets thing is going to work because there's only one ball on the court. And I think I think it's really tough for me to imagine a scenario where everyone's happy and where, I mean, let's not forget, they don't have a ton of guys left. Like, they've got right now a pretty top-heavy team of 4 or 5 guys at the top. And right now they're trying to fill out the roster. I know they signed Anthony Bennett, the former number 1 pick. I know that they are I heard rumors that they're trying to trade for Iguodala. But right now they're like, the team is looking to be a little bit, I think they were so happy to get the value that they got, because I agree with something I saw earlier when the trade first broke. As far as value is concerned, if you're talking about what the Rockets did, you have to say that they won this trade, because they traded the same contract with a player that's not going to work out, that they wanted to move on from anyways, and is older, for one of the most dynamic players in the league. Yeah, you had to give up 4 or 5 picks with him too, but to me, man, that's a pretty damn good trade, and it makes things exciting, but I don't see it working.
Yeah, no, I don't know, dude. I don't see it working either. Like, when I was at work, I was actually closing the restaurant when my buddy was like, "Oh, the Rockets just got Russell Westbrook," and the first thing I thought was, "Well, how's that gonna make sense?" Because you have 2 guys that are very, ball heavy. Both guys want the ball, but both guys want to make plays.
Yeah,
somebody's gonna complain at some point. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's going to be Harden complaining on Westbrook, because you know who I think Russell Westbrook has? He has Carmelo disease. Carmelo Anthony was a guy where he had an opportunity to kind of change the game. Like, I don't know if you saw the
Chauncey
Billups interview.
Yeah, I saw it. I did.
And I thought Chauncey Billups hit it right on the head.
I thought he did too.
Because we looked at it in OKC, they wanted Carmelo to come off the bench, and Melo said no. And I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, dude. You're not the 35-minute, 35-point guy you used to be. Oh, my fault. Yep. You're not the 35-point, my bad. No, you straight. 35-point, 30-minute a guy anymore, you know? You're now more of the bench roll guy.
Right. And the worst part is, Nick, he laughed it off. Remember? He was like, ha, 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 me coming off the bench, ha, ha, ha.
Right.
Yeah.
And now he has no team, and here's Chauncey Billups kind of shining light on that, saying, if we scored 22 and we won, he was upset. But if we're scoring 35 and we lose, then he was straight about it. And that's not the mentality you want. And
that's hard to argue. That's hard to argue against too, man. I mean, you saw it more than anybody as a Knicks fan. It's hard to argue with the fact that, Carmelo seemed content with being superstar Carmelo on a bad team.
Right. And let me say it like this, too, because I remember a game where Carmelo scored 1 point. I forget who. I want to say it was against Atlanta, or it was definitely on the road. But Carmelo scored 1 point.
Oh, my God.
And the Knicks blew out, I think it was the Hawks. And when they went to go talk to him about it, you could tell he was more disappointed that he scored only 1 point than he was the fact that the Knicks won the game. You know, and I feel like between Harden and Westbrook, it's going to be the same way, where you have the same style, and somebody's going to bitch and complain that they're not getting their points or they're not getting the assists. And I think it's going to be more Westbrook than it is Harden, because I think Harden's going to say something at first. He's like, look, I've been here longer. And Westbrook's going to be like, well, this isn't my style, but he's not going to make the adjustment, I don't think, to fit the style of what Houston's going to do.
Yeah, but the one thing that I will say, Nick, is that, quite frankly, I don't think the way that Russell played fit into Billy Donovan's system. I think
I agree.
Yeah, I think Billy Donovan really wanted to change who Brody was, and I think that's why you saw the reports that he was unhappy, and apparently he requested a trade directly after their playoff exit. So this is not a new development. We thought it was a new development when it happened. We were like, whoa, we thought, you know, a week before the trade actually happened, people were still surprised that Russell was even on the trading block. But now that we know that this guy went to the front office and said this isn't going to work. So to me, I think he's a better fit in D'Antoni's system than I think he is in Donovan's system. My big problem with that, Nick, is who's going to play defense? I mean,
exactly.
You know, I kept harping on this to you about the Clippers, and the reason why I love the Clippers so much is because that defense, man. There's one thing you can't predict in the league, Nick. You can't predict shooting, right? You can't predict field goal percentage or 3-point percentage, or if that ball is going to drop that specific night or any night. But one thing you can guarantee is a person or a player who can play really damn good defense, and the Clippers have that right now. And the thought process of Houston to me was more so about, we've got to get a second superstar in here because that's what's happening now, and not necessarily this is going to make us a great team. So you know, listen, the league has changed, Nick. I mean, shit, we can't sit here and say that say that we could expect this type of offseason 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, all of the movement that we saw, I don't know if you saw this, Nick, but Dwayne Wade, he posted a picture of all of his jersey swaps, and he's like, all of my jersey swaps are going to be looking counterfeit soon, because there's so much movement among the top tier in the NBA this year that it was almost hard to keep up with, and now teams are almost nervous. They want to get that superstar.
Right. Hey, but I want to say this, though. I was thinking about this the other day. You notice AD still hasn't signed with LA yet?
That's true, yeah. But we talked about this, Nick. Is it because he can't, or is it because he just doesn't want to?
I think AD's going to play the season out and see where it goes.
Right, but what I'm saying is I don't know if he can. Like, is he eligible to re-sign right now?
You know what? Let's look into that.
Yeah, I have to look into that.
I'm still going to flex that he hasn't signed yet.
Which, hey, I can't blame you, because I talked to you about this a couple of weeks ago when you mentioned it. There's no reason to think that this is a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. Now, do I think that Rich Paul and the Lakers had an agreement that he would extend? Yeah, but agreements can be broken, and a lot of shit can happen in a year. Shit, we saw this, this year. So, props to you, man, because let's be honest, Nick, there's not going to be a ton of free agents coming out next year. Like, next year's class is not looking that great, and AD can really capitalize on that.
Yeah, dude. And on top of that, you're absolutely right. We have seen that this year, because if you look at what Marcus Morris just did, this man just flaked on San Antonio, went and signed a 1-year deal with the Knicks.
It's hard to argue with the man when he's getting $15 million next year.
Yeah, exactly. But, that's the funny thing. I mean, the Spurs might be, quote-unquote, more inclined to win.
Yeah.
But it always raised the question, are these guys really signing contracts because they want to win?
Right.
Or are these guys signing these contracts because they know they about to get straight his age, you know?
Yeah, especially guys on the level of Marcus Morris, Nick. Like, listen, Marcus Morris is not going to be the type of guy that's going to get a max deal anywhere, right? So it's like you've got to scrap up what you can. And if a team is telling you we're going to pay you, what did it turn out to be? I think it was like $8 million more than what he would have gotten with the Spurs, right?
Right.
So to me, that's hard to argue with, man. Oh, and by the way, Nick, just to add a little bit more fuel to your fire, Rich Paul is also Marcus Morris's agent too. I don't know if you know that, but he also has a good Rich Paul has a good relationship with the Knicks. Apparently, from what I've heard, and I think I saw this earlier this week, he talked about how he was very upfront about the fact that he was actually pushing really hard for a trade with the Knicks to the Pelicans, and that he told the Pelicans the Knicks it's either the Knicks or the Lakers. So there's clearly some interest there, right? He wouldn't be doing that if Anthony wasn't at least looking at New York from the side of his eye. So to me, that opens up your theory wide open, because listen, Nick, let's say it's a disaster for the Lakers this year. Do you, as Anthony Davis and his representation, say, yeah, just stick it out, you'll be with LeBron, it'll be fine? No, because LeBron's getting up there too, and you've said this ad nauseum that we don't know what LeBron's going to look like next year. We don't know what he's going to look like the year after. So it's important for AD to make a decision for his career. And let's be honest, he said he wanted to be with the Lakers, but he never got a shot at free agency, right? And we've already said that everybody wants to be courted. Who knows what happens if the Knicks take him to Times Square and show him his face, on the bill or on the big jumbotron and that type of stuff. So I think your theory is more valid than ever.
Yeah, dude, and think about it like this. I think the Knicks signed everybody basically to 2-year deals with a second year of team option.
Yep.
So I think it's just one of the things where the Knicks have to go out. They have to win games. Mm-hmm. That's the most important. You got to win games, okay?
Yeah.
Like, not everybody can be that Miami Heat team. Remember, I don't think that Miami Heat team, before they got the big three, either they made the playoffs or they barely made the playoffs.
Right.
Not everyone can be that team, so you got to be that. That's why I think Brooklyn landed Kyrie and landed KD, because they were the sixth best team. And you're thinking like, okay, we're going to go to a Knicks team that only won 17 games, or we're going to go to a Brooklyn team that was the sixth best team in the league. Brooklyn looks a lot sexier. So if you go out there and just show promise and win like anywhere between 30 and 40 games, a guy like Anthony Davis can say, okay, I see that there's talent here. I see that, that they're really building and they're improving.
Mm-hmm.
Bam. I'd love to come here and join. And then they get the max, because the Knicks will still have plenty of money to spend next year if they decline a lot of team options.
Yeah, and, to a certain extent, Nick, we learned this offseason that the window is ever closing, meaning guys don't get a lot of time. Like, teams can be the favorite to pick up a player and then 2 hours later find themselves at the bottom of the list. We saw that happen a couple times this offseason, and we actually saw it actually wasn't a couple players, more than a handful of players, and it's Cantor being the most vocal about it, who basically said that a team called him and said, you have 20 minutes to decide this. And basically saying, like, you're either in right now or out right now. And that's what we're seeing free agency as, this war of by every second is a new strategy. And every minute you got to be ready for what's happening next. So who knows what's going to happen? I think it might be a little bit too early to understand and really comprehend, but we'll see where that takes us, because I would be interested if I were AD. Why not? If things don't go well this year. But, to me, Nick, the West being so strong might give Anthony a little bit more incentive to go out east.
Yep, I think so too.
Yeah, so
I really do. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, Nick, I don't want to shift gears too quickly here, but I already talked about UFC 239 a little bit, and I want to get your opinion on what happened last week. Obviously,
okay.
Yeah, give me your thoughts, man.
Let's start with the Masvidal fight, I think I agree with Jorge Masvidal. I actually wanted to see more of him beat up on Ben Askren.
Yeah.
But, here's the thing I had to ask about that fight. Either Jorge Masvidal had the greatest strategy going in, or that's the luckiest knee in UFC history.
No, there's no luck in that, my man. I mean, even Askren said the day after, there's nothing lucky about that knee. That knee landed flush because he wanted it to land flush, and they had video of him of Masvidal rather, drilling that exact knee. And if you actually play them side by side, you can see this is something that was clearly planned.
Yeah, dude, because it was just like almost he knew that Ben Askren was going to shoot.
Yeah, because that's all
and
Askren
he just
can
came
do.
in just straight right, and he just came in and just went knees in, and it was pretty much over with.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm with Masvidal. Like, as much as you're happy that you just knocked this man out in 5 seconds, I think because Ben Askren was just talking so much smack.
I know.
The weeks leading up to it, it would have been better to see him just whoop him up in 3 rounds. But I mean, it's a good knockout, and like Masvidal said, that knockout right there has to boost him up to a shot at the title next. So we'll see what happens with that. I think the Nunes Holmes fight, I think Holly Holm was too tentative.
Yeah.
Because I thought there was many times when she should have kicked her in the head.
Right.
I thought Amanda Nunes left, the right side of her head was always wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Holly Holm outthought herself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean,
and I think that's what got her knocked out, because it's like okay, Amanda Nunes, she's anticipating,
mm-hmm.
and then by the time Holly wants to kick her in the head, it's too late.
Right. Yeah, no,
you know what I'm saying?
I noticed that too, and I think Holly said after the fight that one thing that her and Jackson Wink, her trainers, talked about before the fight was that Amanda's corner is probably going to tell her to shoot on Holly if she notices a free leg. That might have been in the back of her mind, that this chick who's so much stronger and bigger than you, if you recklessly try and kick her in the head and you miss out, you're fucked. You're going to be on the ground,
right.
and you're going to be in trouble. But still, I agree with you. There was a lot of opportunities for Holly, and the fact she got kicked out or knocked out by a kick was even more surprising to me. That just shows that Amanda Nunes is a bad bitch.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is.
Guys,
sorry about
that.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, guys, we've got Nick on the line, as you can tell. Ask any questions you can into the chat. We are obviously still taking questions. We're still taking any sort of direction that you guys want. Give us your thoughts. Tell us what you think. It doesn't even have to be a question. Me and Nick are on here to chat with you guys. So go ahead with that. And yeah, so Nick, sorry, what were you saying?
And then with the main event, bro, I'm still not convinced that John Jones won that fight. People can say whatever they want to me. I thought that what's his name? Santos won rounds 1, 2, and 5. I thought he was more aggressive.
Whoa, wait,
John
Nick,
Jones
you really think he won rounds 2 and 5?
I really do, because look, John Jones dominated 3 and 4.
Yeah, he actually dominated 2. He actually dominated 2, 3, and 4 by the numbers.
I don't think he dominated 2. I think Santos beat him in 2, because if you think about it like this, Santos may have torn whatever CLs in his leg around round 2, but he was still landing more flush shots than John Jones was. Like when John Jones tried flipping, doing whatever jump, stupid ass kick he was trying to do, he really didn't hit it.
Yeah.
He jumped over Santos and got lucky that Santos didn't land flush shots when he was on his knees.
Yeah.
So I thought 1 and 2 was Santos. I thought 3 and 4 was Jones, and Santos was more aggressive in round 5. So The unfortunate thing is that it's probably going to be a while until we see Thiago Santos.
Yeah.
Because they say he tore his AMP and PCL.
Yeah, he's out. He's out for all of 2019, guaranteed, and probably part of 2020.
Right.
Yeah,
so
Nick.
it's gonna be a while.
Honestly, my man.
But he deserves a rematch.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he does. I think he's probably one of the few guys that's given John a really good fight. But you're completely on your own with that one, man. I don't think Santos came close to winning. I think I think Santos put up a damn good fight, and I think he was throwing, and I think a lot of people were getting a little bit tricked into thinking that he was winning rounds with his activity, but he didn't land many shots on John that were effective. I'll tell you this: this whole notion that, and I've heard this a couple times throughout the week, that Maheta was the one who landed more flush shots. I don't necessarily agree with that, to be quite honest. I think John, first of all, his fighting style is not to land flush shots, first and foremost. So for judging the fight on that, yeah, fine. Santos has a leg up. But quite frankly, John's game is about really beating you down with volume and using a lot of his athleticism to kind of get around you. And first and foremost, Nick, I don't think I don't think you're taking into consideration how much Jones beat up Santos in the second round with those leg kicks. I mean, part of the reason why he tore all those ACs and PCs and DCs or whatever it may be is because Jones was going at his legs and he was making it really tough for Santos. I did see stretches of the fight where Santos looked really good. But no, you're on your own with that one, man. I can't say that he won the fight. I think he might have won. Again, I think I would venture to say that he was way more active in the first round, and he did a great job of starting quick and took some shots, but ended up doing really well. But props to him. He's a warrior, but I just don't see. I don't see that on the cards.
I don't know. Yeah, no, we'll have to agree to disagree because you know what? One judge agrees with me because that definitely was a split decision.
Yeah, but
so
Nick,
one judge at least agreed, saw what I saw, that John Jones did not overwhelmingly win that fight.
Yeah, but Nick, I don't know if you saw, but that judge was lambasted by pretty much the MMA community. I know Brendan Schaub, Joe Rogan, both, really, really lambasted that dude. I know Dana White said something along the lines of, I don't know what fight he was watching. He'll never judge another UFC fight again. Something along those lines. It's really hard for me to say. It's really hard for me to say that. I know more than a judge does because I probably don't. But again, just judging by the outpouring of criticism on that judge, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, my man. What did you think? I want to ask you specifically because I talked so much about it earlier in the show. What did you think about the extra shots from Masvidal to Askren?
I had no problem with them because they were part of the fight,
Right.
Like, think about it like this. Did anybody have a problem with Dan Henderson landing extra fists or that
Michael
jumping
Bisping,
fist when he knocked out Michael Bisping? No.
Yeah.
So there should be no reason why anyone's tripping about Masvidal. They were talking shit the entire time, and this is what happened. Just like Bisping was talking so much shit to Henderson, and not only did he get knocked out, but then he got a jump fist in the face for his discretions. So, no, I have absolutely no problem. If you talk shit, that's what comes with it, you know?
Right. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, man. I was so disappointed in some of the fans and media that I saw that were, talking down on Masvidal. He's a dirty guy. He, doesn't respect his opponent, and you don't do that, and there's a code. To me, that's all bullshit. Keep that same energy. If you want to talk shit to me for 4 months on Twitter, keep that same energy afterwards. So, again, I said it earlier in the show, Nick. I saw that, Askren went on to Ariel Helwani's show and podcast, and I listened to it. It was a pretty decent interview. He took it well. Props to him. He's a professional. But I think even he agreed that he was expecting that to happen and expecting some extra shots from Masvidal, especially after everything happened. Nick, I got to do a read really quick, but after this, I want to talk to you about some of the rule changes in baseball. Did you have a chance to see a note about the new rules that they're testing out in the Atlantic League?
I think I saw one about them wanting to steal first, whatever the hell that's supposed to be.
So we'll talk about that because, my God, I'm flabbergasted by that. But guys, another one of our. Oh, by the way, before I do say this, please. I don't want to forget, guys, subscribe and share. If you guys, I know a lot of you are watching on Facebook at this point live, so like and subscribe everything that has to do with us. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes. We are basically on all things podcast. We restream this show after on YouTube, so subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're definitely trying to grow this thing and touch as many people as possible. And we want to be able to make this thing a household name. So again, visit the website again. That's macandblack.com. Check out our pages on YouTube. Check it out on Spotify. Check it out on iTunes. Check us out everywhere that you get your podcast fix from. Okay, and again, guys, help us out. Tell your friends, and help us reach as many people as we can because we want to be able to do the show and have a lot of people actively interacting with us and talking to us, and that would be really awesome. So do that for ya boy. Again, we are sponsored again, guys, by Boss to Boss. Boss to Boss Productions is looking for interesting ideas for new shows. Boss to Boss makes it easy to get your show up and running. We're talking handling everything from audio, video production and editing, logo design and branding, website design and hosting, RSS feed setup, scheduling, advertising, monetization, and much, much more, guys. If you have an idea for a podcast or would like to advertise a product on an existing show such as ours, send us a message at boss2boss.com. Again, boss, BOSSED, the number 2, boss, BOSS.com. And then, guys, so Pod River Media Network, that's podriver.com. Before we did that, Nick, I want to just preface this whole rule change thing. I'll try and make it as clear as possible. So the MLB is going to be using the Atlantic League. I don't even think they're minor league. I think they're even lower than minor leagues, if I'm not mistaken, but they might be minor league. I might be mistaken about that. But they are using the Atlantic League as sort of a guinea pig for some of their rule changes. One of the rule changes is obviously in a robot umpire, or essentially a computer umpire. They tested this out. It was kind of wild. The umpire basically had AirPods in and had an iPhone in his pocket, and every single pitch that happened, he was getting something in his ear that either said strike or ball. Pretty simple. It was really interesting because there was a delay. There's a little bit of a delay in the calls. So, usually the pitch comes in and within a second you got your call. This time around, you weren't really getting the calls until about 2 or 3 seconds after the pitch was delivered. So sometimes you have the catcher looking back at the umpires if to say, was that good? Was that a strike? Whatever it may be. It wasn't perfect rather. I know that one player tried to argue balls and strikes with the umpire, and the umpire essentially just pointed at his AirPods. He was like, "That's not me, man. It's these dudes. I don't control that anymore." So that was interesting. I think that went into effect already. They're going to try and do that full time and see if that's something that's an option for the league right now. I don't think we're anywhere near where we want to be, because I think a lot of pitchers have talked about how you can trick a computer into thinking that your breaking ball hit the zone when it didn't. So we'll see how that goes. Another one of the rule changes is if the ball from the pitcher is pitched and does not stay aerial the whole time, meaning hits the ground before it gets to the catcher, then it's normal. But if the ball hits the ground and either squirts away from the catcher, gets away somehow on a wild pitch, gets, whatever. We're used to seeing people being able to steal second or third, or even home on that. Now batters will essentially be able to steal first. So you're going to be able to, on a breaking ball that, hits the dirt and gets past the catcher, you would usually be able to do that with 2 strikes no matter what. You can run to first and try and get yourself on base. Now, if the count is 0-0 and that happens, you can run to first and steal first. Nick, you touched on that a little bit, man. I probably am going to agree with you on this one, but I want to get your thoughts. What do you think about those 2 potential changes?
I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't like either, dude. If the game isn't broken, don't fix it. I don't understand all these stupid rule changes to try and appease to anybody. Stealing first, that's stupid. All this stuff is dumb.
Yeah.
I just feel I feel like the problem is, okay, not to go off course, but I guess the owners of the NFL are throwing around about the 18-game season.
Yeah, but a player can only play in 16 games in that season.
It's stupid.
Yeah,
it's
Dumb.
stupid.
That means that you're going to have to have
one of the most watched sports in America. Why are you trying to add on 2 games?
You know why, Nick?
Preseason is not for fans.
You know why, Nick? Because owners are fucking greedy and they're money hungry, and they saw the numbers that said if we get an extra 2 games, we make an extra 2-point-something billion, and it's ridiculous because first of all, it's bad enough they proposed this 18-game schedule, Nick, but the fact of the matter is they tried to disguise it by saying, well, so players don't talk shit about this, we're going to make it so every player can only play in a maximum of 16 games in a season. So what you're basically saying is that every single position that you have on the roster, including a kicker and a punter, you have to have 2 of minimum. You're going to have your backup quarterback play in a minimum of 2 games, your backup running back, your backup offensive line, everything. You're going to have a deeper team because majority of your players are not going to be able to play in the full amount of games. That's just dumb. That's dumb for the sake of trying to make money, and it's crazy.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And when I saw that, I was like, this is stupid. I don't like it. I don't like the stealing home. I don't like any of these rule changes. I'm still not a fan of the players' remaining visits. I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan of baseball trying to cut down the season. Yeah. I just don't like it. It takes, as much as I love American League Baseball, I know a lot of people say that National League Baseball is more about strategy.
Oh, shut up.
But what they're doing now, it's just taking strategy out the game altogether.
Exactly.
It's so dumb. I'm not a fan of any of this stuff. I don't think anything is wrong. I just think that it's certain fans just being whiny bitches about nothing.
Yeah.
And either it's like in wrestling, they're starting to go back to the old ways that they used to.
Right.
Because you tried playing to the kids and it's not working. So now you got to play to the adults. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're trying to play to these quote-unquote kids, the new fans. F the new fans, take care of the old fans.
Yeah, part of the issue, Nick, and I want to play devil's advocate here just for the sake of this conversation. Listen, I think both me and you would agree, Nick, that umpires are not perfect. Umpires miss calls a lot. They do miss calls pretty frequently, and sometimes they jeopardize a game for you. I mean, I know that you can probably think of at least a couple of circumstances that happened earlier in the season where the team was dealing with basically 1 or 2 missed calls, and I know Angel Hernandez is notorious for this, and CB Buckner. You miss 1 or 2 or 3 calls and you miss the whole game. My huge problem with that, Nick, is that you need an umpire. You can't not have an umpire. Right? So they proved it with their whole testing of the system where you still have an umpire. Apparently, the umpire can still call a ball or strike just like he was before, but basically he can override the computer is what I heard. Now, why would he? You know what I'm saying? You're already scrutinizing these guys to such a high level, and now you want them to go out there and basically only call outs on the base pads. That's all they're there for anymore. And now balls and strikes are in the hands of a computer, which again, that system is not perfect, Nick. I think I want to say, and I might be wrong about this, but back when they started this technology out, I know you remember when they first started this K zone thing, right? Where they first got this technology of, oh my God, we can literally like track the pitch from the mound and show you its curvature and show you where it hit on the K zone and everything like that. And that was such a big deal back then, and people were making such a giant deal about this that, oh my God, this technology is going to revolutionize baseball, and we're going to be able to, to have electric umpires now. And we saw time and time again, Nick, that a lot of that wasn't a perfect system. That a lot of those pitches look better than they actually register on the computer, and a lot of them look worse than they register on the computer. So it's so, if you're gonna have that variable of unpredictable stuff, you might as well leave the umpire out there and hold them more accountable. Give them more training. Make this more of a big deal of, we need to train our umpires to be better, because this whole thought process that we're going to transition into electric umpires or computer umpires is ridiculous. And I don't know if you saw the quote from this guy who tested it out for the first time, Nick, but they must have got a dude who's like on his second day, because he's like, yeah, I think this is great for umpires, and I think umpires who reject this are stuck in the past and da-da-da. It's like, no, dude, we know what this is. This is trying to phase out umpires as a whole. We know what the thought process is on this. So I'm surprised that the Umpires Association, I don't even know if they have one. They've got to have one, I imagine. I'm surprised the Umpires Association let it get to this point, because they're basically that's like working at a McDonald's, Nick, for 20 years, and then they have you start programming the damn kiosk yourself. Like, they're like,
right,
go out there and make that kiosk for us now. And, don't worry about your job. Everything's fine. That's not how this shit works, man. You're going to have a lot of these, especially when it comes to baseball, man. There's so many variables. You need a guy out there calling balls and strikes.
I couldn't agree more. So, yeah, no, I'm not a fan of the whole robot thing. I like the human element. Either they're going to be right or going to be wrong. That's the whole point about being human beings. So,
right.
I've never been a fan of the whole robot thing. Again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know it's 2019, but let's not fly off the handle, have everything being controlled by robots. It's stupid as hell.
Yeah, and you know what, Nick? To a certain extent, dude, show me that this thing works first. Like,
right.
Prove to me that this is a foolproof system. If we don't know that this is a foolproof system, then basically what you're trying to sell me on is a pipe dream. So Steve, I'm sorry, I don't know if you're still mic'd up, Steve, but are we waiting on Nick from Nux still, or what are we waiting on?
No, he's gonna call in. He's gonna call in next week. He's
just, perfect.
They're just tuning in today.
Oh, okay,
for
cool.
the first time, but
yeah. So
all right, well, here, I don't mean to interrupt. Let me let you go, because I got the ladies wondering where I'm at.
All right.
So
say hi to them for me, okay, Nick?
I will. Hey, did you talk football yet?
No, I didn't. I'm gonna wait for you, brother. I gotta have you here for that.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
We'll probably do 2 divisions next week then.
All right. How about we do AFC and NFC East next week?
All right, we'll talk. We'll talk when we go on the show.
Right, we'll talk off. All right, cool, Nick. Well, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for calling in, man. I'll talk to you next week, okay?
Yes, sir. All
right, peace.
All right, yep.
All right, guys. So, we've got around a half an hour left here. So I do still want to talk some baseball with you guys because I did promise that we would. But first and foremost, I want to get to another one of our sponsors, guys, and this one is slowly becoming my favorite sponsor. I'm sorry, Steve. Nux 3-in-1 body spray. We talked about it earlier in the show. We've got some swag, and we finally got one of these things in person. I'm telling you, I sprayed myself with this mid-show. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I sprayed myself. I'm getting a little sweaty in the back. I sprayed myself mid-show, and it smells delicious. Really, really awesome product, guys. I was honestly surprised when I came in and saw it. I was expecting, another Axe body spray. And then you spray this thing, man. This thing is the real fucking deal. So, guys, do us a favor and check out Nux. I want to tell you a little bit more about it here, guys. When you're running around on a day like this, it's 97 degrees. I am a large man. I have lots of crevices and weird places throughout my body that people probably don't want to know about or talk about right now, but I have to because they get sweaty, it gets nasty. It's not really fun all the time, guys. And, quite frankly, I had stuff to do earlier and I came straight here to the show. I feel like I need maybe like 6 or 7 showers right about now. But luckily, I came in here and I threw some Nux on. I feel much better about myself. I smell much better. Hopefully, Steve thinks so too, because I saw him give me a little PU face earlier, Steve. So, but guys, if you've ever played sports, you guys know what it entails. Getting sweaty, feeling gross, smelling gross. There's nothing worse. There's a specific stench to what happens to a pair of pads, specifically football pads. When you throw them on and when you sweat in them, they smell like death. It smells like armpits, ass, and like silicone or something along those lines. So we've got the perfect solution for that, guys. No chafing, no itching, no stinking, and no mess down there, guys. I know you know what I'm talking about. It gets nasty. It gets hard to deal with sometimes in the summer for dudes like me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there. And we finally had the solution, guys. We talked about it. Nux 3-in-1 refresher spray.
Spray a little on you.
Yeah,
put it
please.
on your forearm real quick, because I did that yesterday.
Unbelievable.
It actually kind of it dries immediately.
Yeah, it doesn't feel wet. First of all, it doesn't feel wet. You can tell that this is something like earlier when I put it on over my shirt, and you can almost smell the difference from when I was here earlier and sprayed it until after I sprayed it. It's a big difference. Right. You guys can see right now from my forearm, I'm not even wet. This thing dried right away.
It's crazy how fast it dries, because a lot of these things, and it comes out, it looks like you're spraying something that's wet on you.
Right.
But
right.
It's like powder, though.
Exactly.
But it doesn't show up, though. It's crazy.
No, this is awesome, man. And clearly, I know you said it earlier in the show, but clearly this thing was geared for military use, because this thing is awesome. It has multi-purposes, and it's perfect for somebody like myself or many of you guys who don't really have the time to deal with, taking an extra stick of deodorant with you, or this thing is what you need. It's all there, and I'm telling you guys, Nux 3-in-1 refresher spray is the shit. It's made to replace all the halfway solutions on the market, guys. Nux is a moisture absorbing spray that is designed specifically for men, and especially for our crevices. I'm going to use that word again because I liked it. So again, guys, we talked about the moisture. You just saw me spray it on my arm. I'm, bone dry on my arm right now, so you're not going to have to worry about that aspect of it. You don't have that weird kind of like piney smell that some get. You don't have the kind of that weird like Axe body spray smell. This thing smells good, and I'm hoping to pick up some ladies with it later on, Steve. So I'll let you know how it goes. We're talking armpits, clothing, sports pads, athletic equipment, boxing gloves. I talked to you guys about helmets and pads. They smell disgusting. If you guys have a kid, or if you know a kid, one of your nieces, nephews, sons, daughters is in a sport, I'm telling you, this is what you want. And again, we also talked about no aluminum ingredients, guys. Tested to be safe and effective all over the body. Comes scented and unscented. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm going with the scented. I love this scent. It's going to be hard to convince me.
But you got options.
That's true. You do got the options. And you know what? I do know some people, like I think my brother specifically, is very big about smelling neutral. Some people don't want to smell like anything, right? So that is really awesome. But me, like I said, I'm trying to pick up some ladies. I'm going to go with we call it the Zeus scent. Me and Steve are having a hard time putting a finger on exactly what this smells. It smells good, guys.
All I know is that it smells really good.
And once we upgrade our equipment to smell-o-vision or something like that, I'm gonna spray this right into the camera. Like maybe another 2 or 3 years, Steve.
We're working on it.
Yeah, we're working on the technology. Spray it right into the camera. You smell your phone, you're gonna smell Zeus scent.
Hey, I wanted to very quickly.
Yeah.
Nux was featured on, because Nick from Nux is actually in the Hudson Valley in New York.
Oh, cool.
That's where he's based out of.
Yeah.
And he was just recently on the alternative station out there, WRRV.
Nice.
And incidentally, the guy's name is Nick himself. There's so many Nicks. We have 3 Nicks now.
We're going to call you Nux Nick.
Right, Nux Nick, we call him. But I wanted to play this this spot that he just ran, if you want to listen.
Yeah, please. I would love to listen.
WRRV. Hey, it's Nick, and I want to talk to the guys for a second because maybe you've experienced this nightmare situation before. You just get out of the gym, it's early in the morning, you're getting ready to go to work, and then you unpack your bag, you're fumbling around, you've got deodorant, you've got baby powder, you've got body spray, and maybe you forget one of the 3 or 2 of the 3. Now you're afraid that you're going to go to work, and you're going to be smelling like a foot, especially in this extreme heat we've been having. The last thing you want to worry about is sweating and smelling awful. Nux is a 3-in-1 refresher spray that cools, deodorizes, and absorbs moisture. Yeah, it actually works better the more moisture there is. You don't get those white lines because it's zero residue. You know, those white lines that will ruin your shirt. You don't have to worry about those anymore, my friend, not with Nux. And of course, importantly, it smells great too. It's been tested, it's been proven. Find out why a lot of athletes in the Hudson Valley and beyond are switching to Nux. Visit mynux.com. That's myknucks.com. That's Nux. What's protecting your...
There we are.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a good one. I like that spot. I did advertising on the radio for a long time, and he did a really good job.
He did a great job. I mean, I went to broadcasting school with Nick, and I want to say, Nux Nick, you're a versatile man. You got some voice actor in you as well. That was really good voiceover stuff. That sounded awesome. And that was something I forgot to mention, Steve. That whole white streak thing, man, that drives me nuts. Like, I wear a lot of black. I wear a lot of sort of weird colors, weird shirts, and the fact that alone is like a huge reason to check out Nux.
Well, so one of the things is the aluminum. What happens? I don't know if any of you have ever had a white T-shirt or something. You ever see like the pit stains that kind of turn like orange, like rusty color?
Yeah.
It actually is because of the aluminum ingredients. So,
wow.
Since this doesn't have that, it's like a powder-based thing that kind of just absorbs everything. You're not ever going to have a situation where you ruin your clothes. Which, any shirt that you wear on a regular basis, if you sweat like me and you, obviously, you go through them pretty quick. But
sure,
this is it doesn't have that. It's a game changer. So.
Yeah, dude. Shout out to Nick, man. Shout out to Nux. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to purchasing my first one. I'm not even gonna ask for one, Steve. You know what? I'm gonna support this because this shit is awesome.
Hell yeah,
guys. Nux 3-in-1 refresher spray. Please do us a favor. mynux.com. That's myknucks.com. Check them out. I'm telling you guys, you're not going to regret it. And I might, you know what, Steve? I might just fuck around and try and convince Nick to do a giveaway of some sort.
It's possible.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Let me get Nick on the phone. That voice actor, Nick. I know you're doing your voiceover stuff on the side. You sound like a radio pro, and you're also an entrepreneur. So shout out to you, my man.
Hey, and I actually before the show we were talking about the T-shirts because we got this care package with all the stuff in it. But I was just talking to him, seeing if he wanted to call in today. But he's at the pool. It's like 100 degrees out there, just like it is here.
Yeah.
So he actually said that he is going to send us some T-shirts. So we got to get your sizes and all that stuff. But that is going to be coming soon. And I believe if everything works out, he will be calling in next week.
That would be awesome, man. We really want to talk to him. And again, thanks so much, Nick, for supporting us. Thanks to Nux 3-in-1. This has been awesome since we partnered with them, and I'm really excited. I think all of our UFC stuff, Steve, we decided is officially sponsored by Nux 3-in-1 Refresher
Definitely,
Spray.
yeah.
So that's
perfect use case.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's ever a case for that, I mean, they literally can spray it on everything, and it'll make everything better.
Yeah, and man, and the big part about that is, a lot of people worry about stuff like that in let's say MMA because it might like get them wet.
Yeah.
This thing dries on the spot. It's not even wet when it hits your skin. It's crazy. You guys need to check this out. I know I've got a lot of my people that are in into MMA, into boxing, into stuff like that, please, guys, check it out. MyNucks.com, MyKNUCKS.com.
Yeah, and just to jump in before you
yes, sir.
Kick back into sports, he actually is doing pre-orders right now.
Dope.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pre-order form in the show notes.
Dope.
And obviously, guys, make sure that you check out the rebroadcast of this if you're just coming on now.
Yeah.
We are going to be on YouTube right after the show, so you'll be able to catch it again.
Yeah.
And, tell your friends, tell your wife, tell your kids. And
Don't tell your kids, Steve, because I might get in trouble.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe not. Yeah.
No, please, guys. No, like Steve was saying, guys, we appreciate the support. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is something that we do, because we love it, but also because, we want you guys to love it too. So, give us your feedback, guys. Rate us on, like us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, leave a comment, like it. Please, guys, support us here. Go ahead and tell your friends, and you know what? Go ahead and tell your kids. I think I can. We can
probably
work around
augment the show. We'll work on
yeah.
that.
Well, you'll just have to put beeps in between 9 of my sentences when I start going off on tirades and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but no, guys. Again, MyNucks.com, Nux 3-in-1 spray. We're excited to be partnered with you guys, and we are very excited to eventually talk to Nick. Hopefully, Nux Nick. We will do that next week, hopefully, and if not, we'll find a way. Again, guys, you know how it is every Saturday. We're hoping right now. And Steve, I know this is taboo in the podcasting industry. I know we're not supposed to, peel the curtains back for people to understand the production aspect of our show. But I will say that, guys, we know that Saturdays are going to be busy coming up, okay? And we want to make sure that you guys know that we're sticking with Saturday, guys. Saturday's the day. College football is going to be awesome. We're going to be able to talk about, football games, do our picks, do a lot of our stuff. We're going to be able to talk fantasy. One real huge thing, man, and I can't wait till Nick's back in, Steve, and I can't wait to talk to him about this, but we're going to get a really awesome opportunity to do some fantasy football stuff. And
yeah.
I know that Nick's really big into fantasy football. I'm on team number 6 now for next year. So people are looking at me like I'm crazy. But yes, I am on team number 6 for next year. And yeah, we're big. We're fantasy football nuts. So we can't wait to do that stuff with you guys. Again, next week, we're going to be doing NFL preview. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to break down division by division. That means every team in the division, what they did over the offseason, what their outlook and projections are looking like for this season, some of their fantasy performers, some of their on-field performers, and then, we're going to get into a lot of that stuff. Next week we will start off, we'll probably end up doing 2 next week so that we can stay on pace, because I know that Nick wants to do every single division. We're about 8 weeks right now before the start of the season, so we want to make sure to get to every division before the start of the season. I'm super excited, man. I really can't wait until football season starts, because this is like my favorite time of the year. But anyways, Steve, I want to get to this baseball shit before I go.
All right.
Because right now, me and Nick, we did have a chance to touch on the rule topics, which is really great. I want to talk a little bit about something that really bothers me, which is the disparity in between the free agency period for MLB players in comparison to what it is for the NBA, NFL, and, I wouldn't even say the NHL, because they don't get paid as much, and, they have a tough time with contracts too. But, what happened with baseball over the offseason was a little bit embarrassing. It's got to be. You've got guys who are at the top of their position, some of the most exciting players in all of baseball, waiting up until basically, the end of spring training to sign. That shouldn't happen. And a lot of that has to do with a little bit of collusion, guys. I know that's a buzzword for people nowadays. But yeah, there's a little bit of collusion there. I got to imagine teams and owners looked at each other and said, we're not going to pay these guys, because, if you pay them, then we're all in trouble. And, you see this aspect of baseball that's a little bit embarrassing, to be quite honest, man. Baseball, I think pretty much everyone in sports will tell you the hardest thing to do in all of sports is to hit a fastball. I think 99% of people in sports would agree with that. There's a lot of people who are really athletic who could pull something off in basketball. There's a lot of really athletic people who can really pull something off in football. You can really you can probably know your way around some skates and luck your way into a slap shot or to a wrister in the upper 90, but you're not going to be able to hit a fastball. And I think baseball players, what they do is some of the hardest things in sports, and the fact that they're not paid like that is a little bit embarrassing. I think people look at Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, and they got $300 million, $400 million to Mike Trout and this and that. And I think right now the main problem that we're seeing right now is that minor league players are not getting paid. They're being paid basically slave wages, and they've got a tough job. They are traveling in weird conditions. They're on a bus. It's nuts. We shouldn't be having to talk about this right now. There's enough baseball flowing through, or there's enough money flowing through baseball that we shouldn't have to worry about this type of shit. So, MLB needs to get their shit together, guys. I'm sorry. I love baseball. Baseball is one of my first loves, to be quite honest, was baseball. I fell in love with baseball first, and then I fell in love with football and basketball, and then hockey, and then UFC or MMA. To me, man, baseball is really near and dear to my heart. And I still remember the days where free agency was a real big thing, and it was real, and not what it was this year where, teams didn't want to sign Craig Kimbrell because of, possible, oh my God, we're setting a bad precedent. And, Dallas Keuchel has to wait because he's a former Cy Young award winner, but somehow he's not worth it until, you no longer have to give up a pick. Listen, man, I don't want to get too much into the logistics of salaries because, I don't really know much about it, to be quite honest. I'm, only going off of what I read and what I've studied, but there's not a lot of reasons that you can give me that are legitimate that Bryce Harper and Manny Machado can't find a house or a home with a team until about 2 weeks before the season starts. It's crazy. So, guys, appreciate you tuning into the show here. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna go ahead and just like I said, give you a little preview of what we're looking at next week. Nick should be back into the studio, guys, and then we're gonna be definitely talking about those NFL previews that I just told you about. We'll talk a little bit of UFC because I think there's going to be an event next week that may be pertinent to what we can talk about. There's a couple of things that are going to be happening in NBA free agency that should wrap the bow on that. So we'll talk all about that. And oh shit, I didn't even think about this, guys. There's a UFC card tonight. It's actually going on right now. If I'm not mistaken, it's Jermaine Durandamy, and I actually did talk about this earlier. I'm sorry, versus Aspen Ladd. I have to talk about this Aspen Ladd chick. She went to her weigh-ins yesterday and could barely stand. She was cutting weight, obviously bantamweight, so she had to cut some weight. I believe she's 8-0. She's very highly regarded in the MMA world. And she went to go weigh in yesterday and could barely get herself to the weigh-in station. She it was very apparent that she had a brutal weight cut, something that was way past the limit of what a commission should approve. And I was flabbergasted to see that nothing was done of it. She weighed in, she got off the scale. They covered her up because she didn't have any clothes on so that she could make weight, and she could barely get her pants on, and she could barely get her shirt on. And it was tough to watch. It's tough to watch a chick barely being able to stand, and then thinking about the fact that she has to fight somebody the next day. It was crazy. And the UFC, I get it, it's a business. But they're also in the business of protecting their fighters. And I think they failed. I think they failed Aspen Ladd in that aspect. I think she should have been pulled. I don't think this fight tonight is that important against Jermaine Durandamy, who, she's a pretty seasoned vet, but I don't think she's a player in the UFC right now. So I'm disappointed to see that because I don't want to see her get hurt, and I don't want to see her lose out on an opportunity later because she decided she wanted to make weight here. And then that fight, or that, sorry guys, that card is also has Ricky Simone versus Uriah Faber. That should be a good fight. I like Ricky Simone, and I think Uriah obviously coming back after a retirement, brief hiatus. Mirsad Bektic versus Josh Emmett. That's a good fight too, man. That's a low key good fight because Mirsad Bektic is a fucking animal, and obviously Josh Emmett's a vet in the game. He's had a couple good fights leading up to this, so I'm looking forward to that one. Cesar Fajea versus Martin Vettori should also be another good one. So yeah, we're looking at a pretty decent card this week. So I'm excited to possibly be able to catch the latter half of that if I can make it home in time. But guys, thanks again for sticking with us here this week. Please, guys, I want you to do me a huge favor. Do Nick a huge favor. Do us all a huge favor. Go to www.macandblack.com. Check out the website. You guys can actually watch this live through the website as well. Subscribe to all of our audio channels. Like I said to you before, everywhere that you listen to podcasts, we are there. We are going to be restreaming on YouTube here shortly after this live ends. You're going to see it restreamed on YouTube. Listen to us even if you can't make the live. Listen to us later. Again, subscribe to the YouTube. Subscribe to all those audio platforms. Tell a friend, guys. Do us a favor. Help us out here. If you like what we're doing, help us out and spread the word because we love what we do here. It's awesome. Again, thanks a bunch to all of our sponsors, Intrinsic, Nux, Boss to Boss. Thank you guys so much for everything. Hodgepodge, we can't forget Hodgepodge. So thank you guys so much for that. And also, guys, we do have that number. It is 312-869-4117. We can actually take voicemails, guys. So if you're a fan of podcasts like I am, and you watch Theo Vaughn's podcast this past weekend, or some of these other podcasts that I'm watching, it's pretty awesome to be able to, get voicemails, and we can kind of take on questions, we can take on topics, anything that you guys are wondering about. Leave us a voicemail. The phone number is 312-869-4117. You'll see it plastered onto the screen most of the time in the middle of the show. So again, 312-869-4117. Leave us a message, guys, and we'll talk about it, and we'll play it next week, and you can hear yourself. But otherwise, thank you so much again for watching. Thank you to Steve. Shout out to Nick. We'll see you next week, my man. Thank you, guys. Peace.